So I was mindlessly scrolling through Twitter yesterday, as every mentally stable 20 something does these days, and I came across an article that I absolutely knew I had to talk about the instant I saw it. So this is a very early 2023 NHL mock draft from Matt McKay here. And right away, things are going to get pretty interesting, to say the least. Going first overall to the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, he has I don't remember exactly how he has the teams uh divvied out for the draft. I don't know, you know what I mean. I think it's based on projections for the season, or it might actually be betting odds. But anyways, going first overall to the Chicago Blackhawks, we have not Connor Bedard, not Adam Fantilli, not Matvei Michkov. It's not my boy Zach Benson. It's Colby Barlow. Colby Barlow is a perfectly fine prospect. I haven't seen him play too much. All I've really seen from him so far has been from the Hlinka Gretzky tournament, and he played well. He didn't have a huge role on that team though, which that kind of just is what it is. You can't really change that, but it does give you an idea that maybe he's not the highest end prospect, especially considering guys like Connor Bedard weren't even on that team. So there should have been a little bit more opportunity to play in the top six, but they didn't really use him in that role in that tournament. They used him in more of a middle to bottom six, all around kind of role. He played a lot on the penalty kill, didn't get a lot of power play time. Uh, Kind of more of a defensive role, if we're being honest. So didn't really get to see him shine in his element, I guess. I did think he played well. He was a very effective penalty killer for them in that tournament, had a couple of shorthanded goals. But from what I've seen of him, at this point, would I say he's a first round pick? Probably yes. He's probably a first rounder. Maybe even definitely a first rounder. Maybe even a top 10. Probably towards the tail end of there. I mean, there's a lot of guys that I'm really excited for in this draft class. But maybe he could crack that top 10 for me. I don't know. I'll actually be doing my first rankings pretty soon here, so I'll come to in my own conclusions there. So we'll see. I don't think he's going to crack my top 10. But yeah, having him first overall, I mean, we're talking about a draft class that has Connor Bedard available. And Bedard, in my opinion, is probably the best prospect since McDavid, at least since Matthews. And I don't know, if you're going first overall in a draft that has Connor Bedard available in it, you have to be an unreal, unbelievable level of prospect, right? Like, you could kind of say the same thing about Fantilli or Michkov, in my opinion. Like, if you told me with no context, I didn't know Bedard was in this draft, you just said Matvei Michkov will not go first overall in a draft, I'd say, wow, okay, well, whoever's going first overall must be an absolutely insane, just disgusting prospect. And Connor Bedard is. He's better than Michkov, I think, substantially. Barlow is not, and Barlow is not better than. I don't think he's better than Michkov. I don't think he's better than Bedard, and quite frankly, I don't think it's close. Not to mention the fact that he's listed here as a winger, and I'm pretty sure he is a winger. Bedard is obviously a center. Centers are generally more valuable. But I mean, that doesn't even really matter that much. When you're talking about first overall, you're talking about the best player. If the best player is a left winger, you draft a left winger. If they're a defenseman, if it's absolutely obvious, like if it's not 100% obvious, think about like I think it was a 2020 draft, Owen Powers draft. Like there was debate there. It could have been Power, it could have been Beniers. Some people had Eklund as the best player, or Luke Hughes, maybe. I don't know. I don't think anybody was really saying Luke Hughes was the best, but you get the idea. There was a little bit of discussion there. And then maybe position and positional needs in general kind of become more of a factor. But in a draft class like this, when Connor Bedard is available, like Bedard is the best player, okay? Hands down. So, Matt, I know, I understand. I understand the hustle, the grind, like you're trying to get clicks. You got my click. I mean, here I am making a video on this. I'm doing the same exact thing, right? I'm trying to get clicks myself. So I get it. I get the hustle, but come on. I mean, really? You're going to put Colby Barlow ahead of Connor Bedard? I mean, ahead of Fantilli, Michkov, Benson, Jaeger, all those guys? I don't see it. I don't see it whatsoever. Anyways, moving on, I am going to go over a little bit more of his mock draft here because it is a little bit nuttier past this point as well. Of course, he does have Bedard going second overall to the Coyotes. I mean, I pretty much covered this already. He should go first. Third, he has Adam Fantilli to the Ducks. So I think Bedard Fantilli as your 1-2 makes sense. 2-3, not really, but 1-2. So if you get rid of Colby Barlow entirely here, then those two picks do make sense in that order for me. Although I will say Ducks having the third best odds. Again, I don't remember exactly where these odds are from. It might be, I don't think it's betting odds because I'm pretty sure the Ducks have like the fifth or sixth best odds. So I don't know exactly where he's getting these rankings from in terms of the teams. But I really do not expect the Ducks to finish with the third best odds to draft first overall this year, especially with McTavish coming up. And if you saw the 2022 World Junior Championships just happened, I mean, McTavish is an absolutely sick prospect, absolute favorite for the Calder at this point, I think. So him alone should improve the Ducks enough that they're not bottom three in the league. I mean, they weren't even bottom three in the league this past year, I don't think. At fourth, he has Braden Jaeger going to the Canadians. So basically, Bedard, Fantilli, Jaeger. I could see that. I like Jaeger quite a lot. He's not French, so I don't know what like the highest rated French player might be. Doesn't seem like there's too many here. I am kind of spoiling things here, but I mean, obviously the Canadians do prefer to draft those French guys, but when you're drafting this high, you really do kind of have to take the best player available regardless. And Jaeger very well could be the best player there if they're drafting fourth. At 5, he has the Kraken taking Leo Carlson. So Leo Carlson's actually not a player I've seen too much of. I don't think he was playing at the World Junior Classic. Was he? I don't know. I'd have to go back. I haven't seen too much of Sweden, to be honest. I still have a lot of catching up to do on that particular tournament, but Carlson could definitely be the best player available at 5th overall. I could see a world where that happens. At 6th, he has the Sharks, my favorite team, taking Charlie Stramel. There's a lot of other players that I would rather see the Sharks take here. Zach Benson, namely. I think Benson is probably going to be a top 6 player. At this point in my top 10 rankings, Benson is definitely top 6. He's probably in my top 5. And that's saying a lot for him because again, this draft class is pretty deep at the very top at least. At 7, he has the Sabres taking Nate Danielson. That's actually not a player that I know too much about, so I can't really speak too much about that. Although I will say, if it's a player I haven't heard too much about, maybe not a top 10 guy, because there's a lot of big names that I do know a lot of stuff about, even at this point in the season. So I don't know, that's a bit interesting. Zach Benson at 8. going to the Flyers, 8th overall. That does seem a little bit low. I mean, again, this is super early. Like, we'll have to see how the season plays out, but Benson will most likely be the best player available at 8 if he falls that far. At 9, he has Dalibor Dvorsky going to the Devils. That seems about right for him. Although we are starting to see one major omission, and we'll get to that when we get to him. At 10, he has Cam Allen going to the Blue Jackets. So I've seen a little bit of Cam Allen. He was another player that played a pretty prominent role at the Hlinka Gretzky tournament, and I wasn't really that impressed by him, to be honest. I think this draft class in general doesn't really have many really strong defensemen. Allen very well might be the best defenseman in this draft class. I believe he is the highest ranked here. And yeah, I mean, Cam Allen is probably a guy that's more of a middle pair, definitely top 4 guy, I would say, but probably a middle pair guy, second power play guy, probably. He wasn't really, I didn't think he was that prominent on Canada's power play at the Hlinka tournament. And keep in mind, Team Canada pretty much every year, but this year in particular, I thought was really, really stacked at this tournament. Just based off of the rules for who's eligible, it's based off your birth year, not your actual age. So it is an under 18 tournament, but no 04s are eligible to play, even if they're not 18 yet. So it's all 05s or younger, which kind of gives Canada a pretty big advantage when it comes to roster building. And so you would think that they should just be an absolute dominant force in every aspect of the game, and they pretty much were. But Cam Allen didn't really strike me as one of the players that was making a huge difference. He did put up plenty of points. He had a 4-point game, at least one 4-point game that I saw. But if anybody was kind of a passenger, I guess, I mean, considering he's supposed to be like your number 1 offensive defenseman, kind of felt a little bit passengerish, if that makes sense. Granted, on a team that's stacked, it's kind of easy to blend in, I guess, but he really didn't strike me as a huge difference maker. Next, at 11, he has Kasper Halttunen going to the Jets. So this is a player that I haven't really seen too much of. I did see him last year or earlier this year, I guess, at the World Junior Championships, the one that was last December. I thought he was pretty good. I know I have a couple of viewers, fans, if you will, that are big into Finnish guys, so those guys will probably be in the comments hyping him up. He could definitely be a top 10 guy based off of what I know about him and what people are saying about him. So having him at 11, I think, is realistic, and he does seem like the type of player that the Jets, in particular, might pick. So if you're trying to make a mock draft that's a little bit more reflective of teams, individual teams' drafting philosophies, then Halton into the Jets at 11 here seems pretty reasonable to me. At 12, Callum Richie is going to the Senators here, and that seems kind of low for him. I suspect Callum Richie will go a lot higher than this. Probably, I'd say top 6. I don't love Callum Richie. I mean, he's a good hockey player, right? He's a good prospect to have. Any team would be happy to have him in their prospect pool, but he just doesn't really play a style of game that I personally am super fond of, but I do still see the value there, obviously. And honestly, the Senators getting him at 12th overall, I think, would kind of be a little bit of a steal. And now this is the last thing that I really wanted to talk about, and that's Matvei Michkov going 13th overall here to the Bruins. Now, Michkov did recently suffer an injury, and it looked pretty bad at the time, but he is only out for 2 weeks as far as we know. And in fact, that was a little bit ago, so he's probably getting pretty close to returning from that injury. It's not going to really affect him. I don't think he's going to miss any actual regular season games for the KHL. I do suspect he will play the entire season in the KHL, and there are concerns. I mean, he's a Russian player, so there's that factor in general, and then you add on to the fact the current global circumstances surrounding Russia, which definitely had an impact on the 2022 draft, and I suspect it will have an impact on Russian players in the 2023 draft as well. At least Russian players that are actually playing in Russia, guys that have already come over. If there even are any, I'm not sure if there's going to be any draft eligible Russians playing in North America because they were banned from the CHL import draft. So maybe guys that came over when they're like 15, 16, maybe. I don't know if there's any of those really out there. But any way you look at it, Russian players are probably going to fall, but I don't think that's really going to impact Michkov in particular because of how talented this kid is. I mean, he's one of the best pure goal scorers I've seen in a prospect ever. I mean, people have compared him to Alexander Ovechkin, and I don't think he's like the same style as Obi, but he is kind of a pure goal scorer, a lot smaller than Obi for sure. More of a skill finesse guy than a power forward guy. If you want to call Obi a power forward, I think that's relatively accurate. Now, is he going to come into the league and score like 800 goals or something crazy like that in the NHL? Probably not. But he's going to score a crap ton of goals, and he's going to make your team a lot better at scoring, which is like the name of the game, really, especially in today's NHL. I mean, I feel like we're getting slowly more and more into a more friendly environment league wide for offense. And another thing that people are going to be concerned about with Michkov is his contract. I believe he's signed with his KHL team until like 24, 25, or maybe 25, 26. I'm not entirely certain. Either way, I'm pretty sure it's through his age 22 season, so he'd be coming over when he's 22/23. So you're really losing him for like 4 years because he has the level of talent where he would definitely make the NHL right immediately after his draft. So you're really giving up like 3 or 4 seasons if you're drafting him. But given his level of talent, again, I really don't think teams are going to pass on him specifically because of that. Maybe you combine all these factors and like one team passes on him. Maybe he falls to third overall. Maybe fourth if there's like something else. Maybe he has like a little bit of an attitude problem. Maybe teams are just really not interested in his defensive game because he's not great defensively. But I really can't see him slipping out of the top 5. And realistically, he's gonna go second or third overall. Having him this low is quite honestly, it's a little bit ridiculous. Is it as ridiculous as having Colby Barlow going first overall? No, I don't think so. But it's definitely interesting. Let me know what you guys think about this. If you did like this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. That would really help me out a lot. As of this recording, I believe I'm 392 subscribers away from being monetized, and that is a pretty big goal of mine. So if anything you could do to help me out there, it's free. It takes 2 seconds to subscribe. If you don't watch future videos, it doesn't matter that much to me, right? I'm just trying to get monetized here for the moment. I mean, help a guy get monetized over here, all right? I mean, that'd be pretty cool. I'll put another video on screen for you right above me, I believe, in case you did like this video enough and you kind of want to go for a little bit of a binge on some of my content. Yeah, whatever you guys do, have a nice day.